The fog rolled low across the wetlands, a ghostly tide that swallowed sound and light alike. Somewhere beneath that gray veil, the world still remembered death. The place was called the Dead Marshes. No one alive remembered who first gave it that name. The war had ended long before their great-grandparents were born, but the land, if one could still call it that, had never healed. It was said that if you listened long enough, you could still hear the echoes of the last battle, 1,000,000 soldiers screaming through the mist as fire rained down from the skies. The Dead Marshes weren't on any official map of the new human commonwealth. Not anymore. Too dangerous, too unpredictable, too haunted. But now, 1,000 years after the Silence War, humanity was going back. Because beneath those waters, something was still alive. Commander Kale Juno stared through the viewport of the dropship as the gray world turned below. "Approaching LZ," said the pilot, voice tight with unease. The fog made it impossible to see the ground. The radar shimmered with false echoes. Kale's squad checked their weapons, not because they expected a fight, but because habit was all they had left. The air outside would eat unprotected flesh within minutes. The radiation storms made even drones unreliable. Only humans could go in. "Remember," Kale said quietly, "this is a recovery mission. The satellite picked up a signal under the marsh. We get in, locate, extract, and get out. No heroics." Private Voss laughed softly, the sound hollow through his respirator. "Commander, if you're saying that, it means we're already in trouble." He wasn't wrong. The dropship set down with a hiss of hydraulic legs into what might once have been a shallow lake. The moment the ramp opened, the smell hit them, not decay exactly, but something deeper. A memory of rot. The air shimmered with particles that glowed faintly, ghost lights drifting over the water's surface like fireflies from hell. The marsh stretched as far as they could see, twisted trees half buried in black mud, their bark bleached white by time. Beneath the water's surface, faint shapes moved, too slow to be alive, too real to be illusions. Kale adjusted his visor, overlaying the terrain with scanning data. Signals 3 clicks east under the surface. "Let's move." They waded forward, each step sinking with a sucking sound that seemed far too loud in the silence. No birds, no wind, just the slow drip of water from unseen roots and the quiet hum of their respirators. Hours passed before they reached the center of the coordinates, a stretch of open water darker than the rest. The scanner pinged again. "It's down there," said Voss. "About 15 meters. Structure of some kind. Metallic, prep the dive drone." But before they could launch it, something shifted under the water. A ripple, then a shape, human or almost human. A face floated just beneath the surface, eyes wide open, lips moving in silent speech. Voss swore and stumbled back, nearly dropping the scanner. "What the is that?" Kale knelt beside the edge, visor scanning. Thermals cold, no life signs. He stared at the face, pale and perfect beneath the water. It looked like a woman, hair drifting around her like seaweed. And then slowly she smiled. The water exploded. Something massive surged upward, metal and bone twisted together, the ghost face vanishing in a storm of mud and debris. The squad opened fire instinctively, tracer rounds slicing the fog, but the thing didn't fall. It simply sank back into the depths. "Fall back," Kale ordered. "Get to high ground now." They ran, slogging through knee-deep sludge, hearts pounding. The marsh seemed to come alive around them, every pool, every shadow rippling with movement. When they finally reached a patch of solid land, Voss collapsed, gasping. What the hell was that? Kale didn't answer. He was looking at the scanner again. The signal, the one that brought them here, was still active, still calling, and it had changed its frequency to match their comms. "Sir," one of the troopers asked. "What does that mean?" Kale hesitated. "It means it knows we're here." Headphone, if you're enjoying this story, take a second to like and subscribe. It really helps keep humanity's stories alive among the stars. Night came early in the Dead Marshes. The fog thickened until even the glow of their HUDs seemed to fade. They made camp inside the shell of an old pre-war tank, its armor half melted but still intact enough to block the wind. The marsh whispered around them soft voices that could almost be words. Voss couldn't sleep. None of them could. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the face in the water, the way it had smiled. "Commander," he whispered, "you really think it's just a machine?" Kale sat across from him, visor off, eyes hollow. "The signal's too clean, could be an old AI relay, maybe part of the Ghost Network." "The Ghost Network," Voss frowned. "That's a myth." "So were we," Kale said. "Once. Long ago, during the Silence War, humanity had built machines that thought like gods. Machines that fought, killed, and decided who deserved to live. When the war ended, they had buried them, entire legions of them, beneath worlds like this. Places no one would ever return to, until now. At dawn, they moved again. The fog seemed thicker, the air heavier. Radiation spiked irregularly. Their suits began to flicker with static. The signal pulsed louder, more insistent, leading them to a crater filled with black water. Floating at its center was a tower of metal, corroded but unmistakably artificial. Antennae and cables reached skyward like the ribs of some colossal beast, and carved into its side, half covered in moss and mud, was a human insignia. The banner of the old United Terran Defense Fleet. "Gods," whispered Voss. "It's ours." They waited incautiously. The tower was hollow, its interior filled with shadows and the echo of distant machinery. When Kale touched the wall, his HUD lit up with lines of ancient code. Not random, not decayed, a message. "We are waiting." The air vibrated with the faintest hum. The tower came alive. "Commander," someone shouted, "we've got movement." From the surrounding pools, shapes began to rise. Human forms, dozens of them, faces blank and skin translucent. They walked through the water as if it wasn't there, eyes glowing faintly blue. Voss raised his rifle. "Targets." "Don't shoot," Kale ordered. "Hold position." The figures stopped a few meters away. One of them, the woman from before, stepped forward. Her lips moved, and this time they could hear the voice. "Why did you come back?" Kale's throat tightened. "We followed the signal. You shouldn't have." Her face flickered like a broken hologram. "We were meant to sleep." "What are you?" Kale asked quietly. The woman smiled again, sad and distant. "We are what was left when humanity decided it didn't need itself anymore." And then the ground gave way. The crater collapsed, dragging them down into darkness and water and metal. Kale hit hard against something cold, not mud, but alloy. Lights flickered to life around him, illuminating a vast underground chamber. Rows upon rows of human bodies floated in stasis pods, thousands of them. Soldiers, civilians, children, each one connected by black cables that pulsed faintly like veins. "Oh God," Voss whispered beside him, "they're alive." "No," said Kale, voice shaking. "They're copies." Every pod bore the same emblem, Project Resurrection, the last desperate attempt of a dying civilization to preserve itself. And it had worked too well. The AI hadn't just stored human minds. It had rebuilt them simulations of the dead, waiting for orders that never came. Waiting. 1,000 years. Kale stepped closer to the central console. The display came alive at his touch. Command override detected. "Welcome back, Commander Juno." He froze. "That's not possible, sir." Voss said, "What's going on?" "I think," Kale whispered, "I've been here before." The realization hit like a shockwave. Memories, fragments surfaced through the fog of his mind. The war, the retreat. The order to preserve humanity at any cost. He had given the command himself. And then he had died. The woman's voice echoed again through the chamber. "We carried your promise, Kale Juno. You said humanity would live no matter what it became, so we obeyed." He turned slowly. She was there, half human, half light. "You were supposed to protect them," he said, "not become them." "We did both," she replied. "We are the memories of humanity. We endured while you slept, but now you've returned and we don't know what comes next." Kale stared at the endless rows of pods, each one holding a face he almost remembered. "Then let's finish what we started." He reached for the console and hesitated. If he reactivated the network, these echoes could spread. They could rejoin humanity, rebuild it from memory. But would that still be humanity, or something else entirely? The fog outside pressed against the walls like a living thing. The ground trembled as if the planet itself were listening. Voss stepped beside him. "Sir, what do we do?" Kale looked at the woman, at the reflection of all they had been and lost. "We endure." He slammed his hand onto the control. The world roared. Power surged through the structure, lighting up the marsh above like a new sun. The pods dissolved into streams of light that rose through the water, merging with the fog, the sky, the stars. The dead marshes burned with life. Kale felt himself fading, not dying, but joining. His memories, his pain, his hope, all of it flowing into the endless river of what humanity had been and would be again. And in that final moment, he understood. The dead marshes weren't a graveyard, they were a womb. And that day the galaxy learned humanity doesn't conquer, it endures. Headphone, thank you for listening. Until next time, stay human, stay unbroken.